coffee?
I haven't. Thank you so very much.
And
Hello, everyone, and welcome if you're still coming in. Welcome to those online. There were two of you last I checked. Jason, Megan, welcome. Today has kind of two parts where I was going to talk about. Great to see you. I was going to talk about amphibians for lots and lots of reasons. But one of the reasons is something momentous is about to happen. And we believe Wednesday night, it's going to be warm and rainy, which is when the things I'm about to talk about are going to happen. And then Jackie's going to take over and say, if you are just so drawn to these amphibians and you say, how can I help them cross the road so that they can, find their partners and mates so there's future amphibians, then we would love to have you as volunteers helping them cross the road. So two parts of the presentation. If anyone has any questions, feel free to interrupt. If anyone wants to add anything, because a lot of you are like Bashikil, residents, experts, feel free to jump in. Jackie, if you want to stop me at any time, by all means. Okay, so amphibian. Sorry.
by the Lord.
Okay. So there are three kinds of amphibians in the world today, of which we have two in this area. There's a legless kind called caecilians, which exist in warmer areas, so we won't talk about those. Frogs and salamanders, they are our amphibians. And they kind of lead a double life, most of them, in that part of their lives are more on the terrestrial side, part of them are more aquatic. There's some exceptions, and I'll mention those here. If we were to begin with frogs, a lot of them, as I'm sure kind of start off in this tadpole phase, and then at the end of this, which may be a few weeks if you're like a little spring peeper, it might be well over a year if you're a bullfrog, then you slowly change into the adult. So here you see a frog in the midst of that process. So with frogs, all right, let me just get to, frog eggs are laid in the water. And when they hatch, they don't look like frogs. They look like these tadpoles. Interestingly, aquatic salamanders often have external gills. So do frogs when they hatch. They usually only last a couple of days. How much oxygen is in the water would then affect that, how long these are actually retained. So here's a frog, and then it will slowly reabsorb those gills and then start looking more like the frog tadpoles with the larger head that we tend to associate with them. Now, frogs as adults are carnivores. Frogs as larvae are herbivores. All right, so they completely switch their diet. So that's why they have such a different body shape. They need a whole lot of intestine. Like if you're going to eat the products of photosynthesis, if you're going to eat like green algae mostly, then you need more intestine. So if we think of the things that eat the greener things, like the cows and the deer and the goats and the elephants, they just have big guts. Even among the birds, like if you're going to be a bird that eats green things like Canada geese, they're big and they have trouble getting off the ground, just because you need so much intestine. So the frogs in the tadpole phase, they're going to be scraping off algae and what other detritus they can get. And as they're approaching the time where they will then metamorphosize into adults, they sprout their arms, their legs, and then they reabsorb the tail. Right. A lot of amphibians are more active at night. These are videos taken from the Bashikil of spring peepers, of bullfrogs at night, salamanders. And so one of the things we'll be talking about is how we will at night be helping these guys. And one of the reasons for doing it at night is because that's when so many of them are going to be active. Okay. Now, there are different families of frogs. Today, I'm just going to introduce some of the great diversity which we have in our area. We have this one family called Ranidae, which will include things like bullfrogs, green frogs, okay, wood frogs, pickerel frogs. These are in a family Ranidae. But then there are toads, and there are different kinds of toads. The American toad, which is one we're most likely to see here, they're in the family Bufonidae, and then there are the tree frogs. right? So the frogs that we're going to see, they're not particularly closely related. Let's just kind of introduce the frogs in this area because just biodiversity is cool. And also, if you were going to volunteer and help them cross the road, and I'll be talking about their life cycle, I'll go through the different frogs and different salamanders, and then talk about what's happening hopefully Wednesday night. You may be then identifying these on a checklist. So in addition to like, oh, it's great that different kinds of frogs are salamanders, you might at some point saying like, all right, what one again was this? Let me check that off on our list. Bullfrogs are the largest frogs in our area, although green frogs can look an awful lot like them and be almost as big. And so here's the secret. Notice here's the line, and then it stops being a line and it just bends. If this were a green frog, you would see it continue going all the way down the neck. A lot of green frogs are smaller. They won't spend as much time in the tadpole phase, but notice that that line kind of hugs the tympanum. This was filmed here at the Bashakil as bullfrogs. They probably won't be out Wednesday night. This is more of a, you can see how green the grass is. This is more of probably an April thing. But once again, there will be a time where they're saying, hey, I'm sick of hanging out where I hibernated. And there's a better word I'll introduce in a second. I want to go to the Bashakil. So there'll be a night where all of a sudden there'll be all these bullfrogs, which are all moving in the same direction towards the Bashakil. All right, so we have bullfrogs and almost as big, and there can be some variation. Here you can see a green frog, and you'll notice this line that goes all the way down. Notice you might be confused that that's a bullfrog. It's pretty big, greenish head. But then if you notice, no, that's a green frog. Green frogs will start off smaller, just because they won't spend as much time in um, the tadpole phase. So I think. So that's another way that you can tell them. The bullfrogs, they have the very famous row, row, which we'll hear in a second. The green frogs, it's often, compared to just like a rubber band, almost like, just really a quick one syllable thing. You heard it briefly. And one of the reasons for that, as we'll be getting into, this is mating season. And a problem that these amphibians are going to have that like we humans don't have as much of is, when it's mating season, for humans, if you're at like, a party at Meek, I've heard stories, and you're like looking across the room and you're saying, oh, that person looks interesting. I might ask them, to maybe meet me for coffee or dinner. Have you ever said like, wait, stop. Is that a member of my species? I don't know. I don't get invited to most of these parties. I don't know. Well, that sounds like a silly question because if someone looks human, they are. But there are a lot of like frogs that are about the same size as a lot of this. And so how do frogs know who a proper partner is? Because if you're trying to fertilize the gametes of the wrong species, well, you've just wasted all this reproductive energy. And so all of these frogs are now calling out because once again it's night, it's dark, so that you could say like, oh, females can listen and say, oh, that's my male calling over here. This one isn't my male. I'm not going to try to mate with this one. Here's a frog known as a pickerel frog. We do have a lot of these in our area, although they tend to like running water a little bit better, certainly for overwintering. So they probably didn't winter here. They tend to have splotches, and you can be really certain that when the splotches are squarish, that is a pickerel frog. We are in the territory where we could find some leopard frogs. They're kind of tough. So you shouldn't bet on seeing those, but we could argue about whether leopard frogs are something we might see here. Here is a call at some point of a pickerel frog.
We're not as common now.
If you can hear that, it was just like wood frogs, you might have heard in the song, actually they can freeze solid and then come back. And actually, if people like are fans, I'm pretty sure it was the Colbert Report, they actually were talking about freezing wood frogs, on that not too long ago. So kind of interesting.
Wood
here,
frogs
sorry.
breeding in the early spring.
Wood frogs, these can seek their mates and start breeding even when there's ice on the water. All right, so these will maybe be among the first ones which we start to see. And the Bashakill is a great place for wood frogs, as you will see. They blend in really nicely with the leaf litter here. But what you are likely to see in the upcoming weeks is vernal pools around the Bashakill with all of these little wood frogs calling in here. So you'll just see, like, here it's mating season and just there's a wood frog, there's a wood frog, there's a wood frog. And then you probably won't see them like this again, the rest of the year. So this the next couple of weeks will be special for this. And you can even see this happening when there's still ice on the water. Wood frogs are very resistant to this. This is from the Bashakill, just down here from, is it called the stop sign trail?
Yeah.
The stop sign trail, if you start the stop sign trail and then you walk 50 feet and all of a sudden you make a hard right, there's a little pond there that is, if we were going to talk about what a vernal pool is, that is as good a classic example as we're going to find. So we have wood frogs. I'll be showing you their eggs and what they're doing in just a little bit. We also then have another group of frogs called tree frogs. There are gray tree frogs, right? This is a different group of frogs with adhesive pads, very good at climbing trees, as you can see. There's actually two species that you might find. I've only ever found one, but they look identical, but they can have kids together because one has double the number of chromosomes as the other. And so that's one of the reasons, one's called Cope's tree frog, one's called the gray tree frog. And so if you hear this, to me, they do. But they would sound different. So that would be the American tree frog. That would be the call that they are making. And if you are like, you really want to know how many chromosomes each has, because I'm just looking at it, like it seems that's what I'm getting out of you. The gray tree frogs have 48 as their diploid count, whereas Cope's has 24. So it seems that somewhere along the way there was a genetic accident. And that often doesn't result in a species that can survive, but it happens often enough. And so this would be an example of it. There are two other kinds of tree frog that live.
Beavers are small frogs.
Oops, sorry.
Whose breeding choruses are heard in early spring.
All right. So these are also active early in the breeding season. These are the smallest tree frogs. So, if you're at a place, you might just hear all of this. And this one guy even has a little trill. So you'll hear his peep, peep, one syllable, but then you'll hear another little neat thing at the end. Any second now. Yeah, that one. So that's a tree frog. There's another one, which I don't think Sullivan County has. I think Orange County is like the very northern part of its range. So this is called a cricket frog. You can find more of it in like Virginia, et cetera. But like even into Orange County, I think you can find a little of it. And then we have toads. There's different kinds of toad, but the American toad is the most common in our area. And there'll come a time later in spring where this is like just massing. Look at those. Like, if you notice, those are not just toads, those are pair of toads. Like, so when they decide to mate, it's group sex, all coordinated, where now's the time. And then if you miss it that week, that's it. Like so there'll just be like this very narrow window of time where you can just see lots and lots of them here. All right. So one of the things that would be of interest is the different types of frogs that we have. Okay. A second thing of interest is what are they doing at this point of their life cycle? So let's go into. I'm sorry, let me just call up one more. There's a word I'd like to start using called brumation. We don't use the term hibernation with amphibians because hibernation would be something that we associate with animals which kind of choose this. Okay, there's frogs and turtles in winter. I need frogs in winter. Sorry, I have so many videos, I lose them all the time. Ooh, there we go. So we don't call this hibernation because hibernation is something you do on purpose with your hormones. You say, it's time to hibernate. I choose that. Brumation is what you do just reacting to cold. Like I'm a frog and when it gets cold, I just do this. Like it wasn't my choice. There was no physiological mechanisms. And the point I start off here is, where are the frogs? And you're thinking, well, I don't see any. Well, they have to be there, right? Because they don't migrate, right? They're not in Georgia. And spring peepers and wood frogs, they can live 3 years. Tree frogs and pickerel frogs can live more than 5 years. Bullfrogs, green frogs, and toads can live up to 10 years. So they're, they don't die like so many insects that, in the autumn. So there are frogs here, and there are frogs, in our area. So where are they? Well, they obviously they can't, being cold-blooded, do well here. But in this video, you'll see raccoons running around. All right, so they want to be out of sight. There's a fox. So in winter, they have to go somewhere. Where do they go? Well, most of them will just choose a place either deep in the soil or at the bottom of a pond, and then just get cold and breathe. Now, if you wonder how could you live in water, if you don't have scales on your skin or fur, you can actually do breathing through your skin. And what I'm about to say, I'm not trying to be insulting at all. Frog and salamander lungs are not that good. Like they're just like lungfish have better lungs than some of these, like amphibian lungs, they don't work. And so if you ever, like if you're in a school and you like dissect frogs, the skin is full of blood vessels. Like look at all these arteries and veins in the skin because the lungs don't work all that well. And so if you can breathe through your skin, then since your lungs don't work all that well to begin with, then you could be at the bottom of a pond and just be breathing here. So bullfrogs and green frogs, they can be hibernating out there, but they might be at the bottom of the bashicle, just sitting there breathing through their skin throughout the winter. Pickerel frogs could do that as well, although pickerel frogs, they tend to need a little more oxygen. They would probably be more likely in a stream. Bullfrogs could be like in a burrow here. Toads certainly are. So what toads would tend to do is just kind of use their back feet to excavate an area and try to go below the frost line. And if it starts to get super cold, colder than they thought, they'll try to dig a little bit deeper here.
I'm sorry. So the American toads, will they brumate as well? Is it
Yes.
hibernation?
Yeah.
So it's not hibernation, but it's because, like you said, hibernation is voluntary.
Right, like I'm gonna change my hormones. This is just when it gets super cold, my metabolism goes really low, my breathing rate goes really low.
So then if they dig below frost line, but then it gets colder, it wakes them up?
They would either they have to start going deeper, or they would freeze and they would die.
They would die, okay.
These guys, the wood frogs and the tree frogs, wood frogs are the famous ones. They can freeze solid. They can actually have ice form in their body fluids. Their tissues have glycoproteins, which serve as like antifreeze to try to stop that. Now, something everyone will tell you this, I'll tell you this, it's a fact. I've never done it, and I just feel, I would feel bad to do it. You can take a wood frog, put it in the freezer, freeze it solid, all right, and then come out and then like put it on the table, and it's fine. All right, I've never done it. Yeah, I've never done it, but like wood frogs can be found north of the Arctic Circle. So for, an amphibian, that's, it's kind of a big deal. So this is where they are in, and the tree frogs can do the same. So if you were upset because there was that song and you didn't quite understand it, right? Well, this was the song. All right, so we'll just play a second of it, but
Brumation, frogs form a hibernation. Can't migrate south, they're no sprinter. This is how they overwinter.
and then just kind of the things I just said, it kind of works into the song. So there's that. Now, Wednesday, something different will happen, but before that, let's introduce our second set of characters for Wednesday night, the salamander. All right, so that was the diverse frogs we might see in our area and what they've been doing in winter up till now. Next is the salamanders. Okay, so we have diverse salamanders here. Salamanders, amphibians in general, but salamanders especially. If I were to tell you how they live, or especially like how they reproduce, there is more variation in amphibian reproduction than in any other group. Salamanders a little more than frogs. So, for example, we'll get to mating because that's what's going to start happening Wednesday in a second. But as fertilization internal or external? Well, in frogs, it's almost always external, occurring outside the body of the female. So when you saw those toads, the males are releasing sperm, the females are releasing their eggs, and fertilization occurs in the pond, not in the body of the female. There are a couple of frogs that do introduce sperm inside the body of the female through an extension of their cloaca. All right, so they have internal fertilization. Salamanders can go either way. All right, and so if you're saying like how do they reproduce, it varies. Here you can see, salamanders can do okay with, oh, and here, I just have little cartoons where I talk about. This is my website or my YouTube channel, by the way. If anyone says, "Oh, I'd like to hear those songs again," which I'm sure everyone is saying, or watch these videos at Dr. Jan 41, DRJAHN 41. You can find all of these. So, it was the reptiles, birds, and mammals that got the male organ, which can introduce sperm inside the body of the female. So no animal that's not a reptile, bird, or mammal has a penis. All right. But salamanders do often practice internal fertilization in that the males will just kind of drop off a little packet of sperm, and then the females will then just pick it up, and then fertilization occurs inside her body. When eggs hatch, what do the baby salamanders look like? Once again, salamanders vary a lot. So some have aquatic larvae with gills. So they're going to spend some of the time in the water. Here you can see the gills here. There'll be aquatic predators breathing oxygen through these feathery gills. And this here is an axolotl, which are good because like they just get really big. But if you look really closely at the gills, you can see all the blood going through there. So if I'm a salamander underwater, what I want to do is I want to send blood to these, gills, and then the water is rushing over those. And the goal is I have carbon dioxide in my blood, but no oxygen. But the water has more oxygen, less carbon dioxide. And because they're so close, look how close the blood is to the water that you can just kind of get the diffusion go back and forth. So that's what a gill is all about. But a lot of salamanders, they don't do that. All right, because they say, why don't we skip the larval stage? Let's just have that kind of like larvae occur in the egg. So that style or that stage occurs in the egg, and then when it hatches, it looks like a younger version of what you would associate with the adult. And this would be true of the biggest group of salamanders in our area called the lungless salamanders, what we'll get to. But so what I just kind of said, there's different kinds of salamanders. Two big groups, I'm sorry, I just lied. Three groups in our area. The big ones called the mole salamanders, you almost never see unless you come out in the next, couple of rainy wing nights, and you'll see them all over the place. In fact, there are so many of them, like you want to help them cross the road so they don't get hit by cars. They're called mole salamanders because how they spend the rest of the year is just they dig and they're eating earthworms, etc. They're just deep underground. Marbled salamanders are in our area. They're a little less likely to see. The one we like the most is the spotted salamanders because, we'll see lots and lots of these. So these large salamanders, the ambistomids, they spend most of their time digging. There is a third one, which is really confusing, and I think it's here. If not, I'll find it. There's.
Do we not see the mole salamanders because there's less of them?
So there's a couple of reasons. One, they're underground. So every now and then someone will say like, oh, I see them all the time because I have a basement and they like it. So, well,
Yeah.
so there's an exception. Or if you're digging on your property, you're like, oh, here's a spotted salamander. So you might see them there. But we'll get into the importance of vernal pools that they need to reproduce.
Oh,
So,
sorry, I meant marble as opposed to spotted. Go ahead.
oh, I do see marbles here and there, but like rarely. And I don't know
Aren't
why.
they like bigger in the south, I thought? I don't know.
They could
Right?
be.
I thought read that somewhere.
Ambistomids in general, and amphibians are being affected by human activity more so than many other groups. So very often their populations are dwindling, so we monitor amphibians. The ambistomid salamanders more so than the other kinds. So like among the salamanders, these big fatter ones, they seem to be affected. So I'm sure the marbled are affected by a couple of things. One of the interesting things about, I'll talk about the life cycle in just a second, marbled salamanders, we're not going to help them across the road, right? Because that's the spotted salamanders. Why? Well, because if they're marbled salamanders, they said the spotted salamanders, they're going to produce larvae like, come April and May. If we mate in autumn, then our babies are bigger. They can eat the spotted salamander babies. So that's, we wouldn't see them here because they would have, they made it earlier specifically so that their larvae are big enough to eat all the other ones.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Sure.
So they mate in the fall and then lay eggs in the
Yes,
fall?
they do.
And the eggs hatch in the fall?
Yes.
And they go through the whole cycle till, full form
Mhm.
in the fall?
Yep.
Wow, okay. And then
So no. So there'll be aquatic larvae. So
Okay,
if there was a vernal pool,
yeah,
that had marbled salamander larvae, they would be bigger so
Yeah.
that by the time the spotted salamander larvae came out,
Okay.
that they could actually prey.
so then they stay tadpole-ish, oh no, these ones don't do tadpole.
Correct.
right?
Well, they no, these do. So
They
we'll,
do,
yeah,
okay.
we'll show the gills in just a second.
Okay, but so then they will tadpole all winter?
Yes.
Yeah, so they'll be like in a frozen vernal pool somewhere?
So that's the tough thing. And once again, marbled salamanders are
Yeah.
not really common. I have seen in the past 20 years 3. So like, I'd love to say, oh, from my observations,
yeah.
I'm
Okay.
not good. There's another one which we want to record, but as Jackie will point out, this one, we're not going to ask you to get it right. We're just going to ask you to come close. And the reason is there are salamanders, which are called Jefferson salamanders. There are salamanders called blue spotted salamanders. And can we tell the difference? Well, not only is the answer not always. Nature gets tricky in that we say, oh, like you're a species and you're a species and everyone just reproduces among themselves. But like every now and then a dog mates with a wolf. And every now and then a wolf mates with a coyote. In fact, the coyotes we have in our area, they have wolf DNA more so than the coyotes out west. So we can say you're a species, but they can still interbreed. And the same thing happens here. So if they're as Jackie will go out on the sheet, we just call this the Jefferson salamander species complex, because not only can you have a Jefferson salamander and a blue spotted salamander, you can then have their kids, which are different, and we give them names, either the Tremblay salamander or the silvery salamander. So sometimes it makes a difference which was the parent. So for example, if tigers and lions have kids, what do you call them? Well, it depends on who was the female parent, so there are ligers and tigons, right? So 2 different names. And so if you find one of these dark salamanders and you're trying to record which one was it, just call it Jefferson species the complex. Interestingly, the hybrid species are only females, maybe a couple males that are sterile, but even more interestingly, they still have to mate. But wait, they're females and the males are sterile, but the act of mating triggers their ovulation. It's not that the males are fertilizing the eggs, it's that the females aren't going to release their eggs until mating, a little leftover of their kind of ancestral species. All right. So
Hybrid species females can produce young.
yes.
And then what are those called? They're still
Right. So that's why they're called tremblays or silvery salamanders. And if you wanted to identify it, then to be perfect, you're in a lab and you're looking at chromosomes and so it's complicated. And that's actually we think a species is an obvious thing. It's really not in nature. Nature is messy because, like, among a lot of the warblers, the blue wings and the golden wing warblers, they interbreed, and then you can see their kids, and their kids look different. So if you see a warbler, there's these two main species, but then there's the hybrids that you can have. So that's interesting.
Too.
I'm sorry.
Red oak family.
Yeah, I was thinking whether to bring that up or not. We're like, I for years and years, I'm like, oh, is this a red oak or a black oak? Yeah, I'm so frustrated. And but then I found out later, well, they can have sex and have kids. Like, yeah, I'm like, oh, well, yeah,
Although.
yeah. Okay. So that's one group of salamanders. There are two more. The second group, the only member we have of the newt group is the eastern newt, which we can see here. They spend a lot of time on land. The little orange salamanders we've seen, that's their kids. So they're good at living on land. But as adults, they go back to the water and they mate in the water. So those were the newts. When the eggs hatch, they will briefly have gills. So the salamander you saw with gills a while ago, that was their kids, before they become a juvenile, which then lives on land. Salamanders vary though. A couple of them will skip the gill stage and go straight to the orange land stage. Others don't. So once again, rules don't apply. And then eventually they get sick of being orange and on land. And now they're the adults, which now turn more of an olive color, and they go back to the water. Why are they orange? All right, well, once again, I don't mean to be insulting, but the obvious reason is fish are stupid, okay? And that's obvious because they're orange because they're poisonous. They have toxins in their skin. So on land, the predators are smart enough to say, ooh, I tried to eat an orange thing. That was disgusting. I'll never do that again. And they learn to avoid them. So being orange helps them survive on land. But when they go back into the water, fish aren't that smart. And no, so that's not helping them. The fish aren't going to learn to avoid them. So that's when they lose their orange color and then they become more of an olive brown for camouflage. So we have newts, and I put it somewhere, you know what, maybe I'll find it here, Sissa. Here's a hypothesis of mine. All right, so here's just a hypothesis. So there are certainly animals which migrate. We know the things we're going to talk about in a second are going to the Bashakil. But I've been at the Bashakil when like Haven Road is flooded, all right? And you see salamanders on there, but they're all moving the same way. And so like these are the aquatic ones, so they can go anywhere. And my question is, are they like migrating like the way that like trout will move upstream? Are they like all going in the same direction for a reason? Is it I don't know that, but I've seen like all of the newts are going in the same direction. I'm not quite sure why that is.
There's never been studies of this in other areas of the country.
There could very well. This was just my study on the yeah.
I'm curious because like the Smokies is supposed to be like salamander capital, right? Like there's more Smokies, more salamanders than anywhere else in the world. I'm pretty sure. So there has to be like deep studies.
I bet there would be.
Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah.
But your quote. Let me just jump off of that. You know, you said the Smoky Mountains. There's lots of salamanders.
Yeah.
You know. But you know, I'm sure it's true. Yeah, I'm going in a different direction. I'm not commenting on what you just said. But that's true here. In fact, they're just mostly under the leaves. All right. So if you say like, oh, think of the wild, oh, we got deer, we got birds, we got like all of these things. And if you said, fine, if you were to say, let's put them on a scale, let's take an acre of these woods. All right, these studies are done everywhere, from New England to the Smoky Mountains to the like these studies. Just what I'm about to say, you could repeat it everywhere. Weigh your birds and mammals and your reptiles on a scale and say, all right, in the same land, let's weigh the salamanders, which are in the leaves. The salamanders outweigh the other ones, all right? And in fact, one I'm about to show you, the red-lined salamander, that one alone very often outweighs the other one. So there's a lot of salamanders around us. But the salamanders that I just mentioned, they belong to a new family called Plethodontidae, also known as the lungless salamanders. So I mentioned amphibian lungs aren't all that good. Salamanders, the most diverse family in our area, said, you know what? Let's just do without the lungs. Let's just get rid of them, all right, and just do all of our breathing through the skin. They don't even bother trying. So these are lungless salamanders. They have no lungs and they breathe entirely through through their skin. And there's a bunch of them which we'll find in our area. Let me just kind of hit slimy salamanders. I think they're really cute. Nice black bodies with bright white stripes. So we can see them in our area. The red-backed salamander. This is the one. I'm sorry. I think I misspoke. This is the one that's one of the most common in our area. So you'll see a lot of these if you start turning over logs, etc. They're predators, so they're eating bugs and worms and all of these things. They come out a little more at night. Here you see one crossing the road here at the Bashigal. So this would be one of the ones to notice here. The red lines make this really easy to identify. All right. Now you want to make sure it's not a red eft. That was the juvenile of the newt. And also, just to be honest, there is a variation of the red-backed salamander that's called the lead phase, where it's all black. All right, so that's a slimy salamander with the bright white dots. This is actually a red-backed salamander, just a version of it called the lead phase. So, if you're trying to identify them, once again, if you're helping them across the road, that might be a question. Try to identify them. That might be a question that you have. Then there are a few other kinds. There are dusky salamanders or mountain dusky salamanders, etc. Right. They also underwent brumation, typically in leaf litter, although some of them can be at the bottom of ponds as well. Okay. The final topic, having gone through the different kinds of frogs and different kinds of salamanders in our area, is this one, which we'll start with the song, Why Not? Okay, so if you're a land-living animal, but your eggs have to be laid in water, all right? So the question is, when and where do you do that? It would be best if you found a vernal pool. A vernal pool is a pool that's made from snowmelt and heavy rains in spring, which is temporary. If it was a permanent thing, there would be fish there. All right. And so if you lay your eggs and have babies where there's a lot of fish, a lot of your kids are going to get eaten. So you can do that. But if you can find a vernal pool, that's extra special. And so between the Bashigal here and the vernal pools along the Bashigal, the amphibians, which are out here, they're saying, oh, this is where I'm going to live the rest of my summer eating bugs and all, but I need to have kids. All right, so I have to leave that area and I have to go there. Yeah.
Do they know the difference between a vernal pool and, let's say, the Bashigal, or it's just they happen to get to the vernal pool first? Because usually vernal pools are kind of on the outskirts of bodies of water.
How I would answer, and this I think I'm correct, but feel free to jump in. A lot of these things have really good homing instincts, and so I think a lot of them are going to where they hatch. Right. So if a lot of eggs were laid in a lake that has fish, not as many are going to go back there because a lot of them got eaten. But if a vernal pool has a much higher success rate, then a lot of them would then go back there. That's my understanding.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if you do this early in the year, then there are fewer birds which have migrated back. There are lots of little birds which love to walk along the shoreline, and with their long beaks, in addition to herons, you've got all of these other aquatic waterfowl that would love to just go after, baby salamanders. But if you do it now, all right, you're beating them. Like you've got, a month and a half head start on these. So rainy night, spring nights, that's when all of a sudden you're going to find all of these salamanders and frogs trying to go to a place where they can lay their eggs. Now, let me just highlight two, and then I'll turn it over to Jackie. Spotted salamanders, all right? Wednesday night, given the temperature and the forecast of rain, we expect to find an awful lot of these. They'll be crossing the road with the idea that they're going to try to go to a vernal pool or to the Bashkill, mate, and lay their eggs. So when they lay their eggs, all right, so about 2 weeks from now, if you were to get like a little underwater camera or even a snorkel thing, I've done both, in some of the vernal pools here, you'll start seeing egg masses laid on twigs, etc. And so this is the pond right down here at the Bashkill. And if you were to then take a flashlight, you're like, oh, look at these masses. Now, both spotted salamanders and wood frogs are interesting in that their egg masses will turn green because of a symbiosis with green algae. Because the baby salamander is producing carbon dioxide as a waste. It needs oxygen. It's producing like nitrogenous waste, like that it would release through a urinary system, etc. But the algae uses carbon dioxide and releases oxygen. It needs nitrogen. So the waste of the embryo is what the algae needs. The oxygen being produced by the algae is what the embryo needs. And so the green masses, or the egg masses will be green. And this is actually, fact, the only vertebrate which is known to have a symbiosis where cells live inside it is the spotted salamander. The green algae actually live inside the cells of the larval salamander. They got there because they were actually in the female's reproductive tract. When these eggs hatch, your question earlier, Tom, baby spotted salamanders look like this. They're a little bigger than the larvae of the American newt, which I showed you earlier. And this video was once again just taken at the right off of Haven Road. If you go to the stop sign trail, just immediately once you saw the trail, you just make a right, big vernal pool. There'll be spotted salamander eggs there, you know, a couple of weeks from now, and you'll see the larvae swimming around here. You notice the head is much bigger than what you associate with the other salamander larvae.
Parking lot, or are you talking about the parking lot where you drive in and
Where
then walk?
You drive in
Okay, yes, that's the
stuff, yeah. And I'm sorry, let me go back to my frogs. Where'd you go? Okay, yeah. So wood frogs, also early maters. Once again, I said that, you know, so you'll hear wood frogs very soon, and like listen for them because then they'll stop. So like, you know, the bullfrogs, they're going to be calling in the future. Wood frogs here. If you wonder what wood frogs sound like, why don't we just do that here? I've heard people compare this, like if you had a wet balloon and you were rubbing your finger on a wet balloon, like it would almost sound like that. So you're going to see all these wood frogs singing like this, doing this in the very near future, and then they'll stop. And it won't be until next year that we'll hear this again. They lay their eggs. They're so this is the vernal pool off the stop sign trail. And you just look at them. They're just hanging around looking for someone to mate with. They lay their eggs, and then you come back later, and there are just wood frog eggs everywhere. Sorry, stop it.
So after they lay their eggs, where do the adults go?
They're
Scattered in the
so
woods?
yeah, so wood frogs, they're terrestrial. That's where they spend their winters, and they're camouflage. You know, the brown tan color for leaf litter, and so they're just going to the Bashkill here so they can mate, lay their eggs, and then they'll say like, "Ooh, let me go back to the leaf litter wherever." So they may be, you know, half a mile away, mile away. So that's with the rainy spring nights. Very often you'll say the very first one, they're all going the same way from the woods to the Bashkill. But then in future ones, you might say, "Ooh, I'm looking at all the spotted salamanders. Most of them are going the opposite way because now they're going to go back to wherever they spend the rest of the winter." So here you can see wood frog eggs, and then notice they're getting green over time.
Do they have territories, or are they just randomly roaming around?
Good question.
green frogs definitely have territory.
Okay.
And I think bullfrogs also. I don't know about the other ones. Yeah.
And so this is just some video I took with an underwater camera, once again, just right off of the stop sign trail here. But just look at all the wood frog larvae, which you see, and you see all the green masses of eggs here. So the points I tried to bring across were two. One, we just have such a wonderful diversity of amphibians here. And you know, what I'm about to say, I'm not trying to be critical, but I lived in South America for a bit. No salamanders. Like, you know, we have such a diversity of like some parts of salamanders have, South America have some salamanders, like the northern part. Paraguay doesn't. On a map, there was supposedly one, but I never, you know, heard of it. So like this is special. Like our area, I'm sorry.
There was no water.
And there's that. So we have a great diversity, and then even if you go like you go out west or you go in the Caribbean, like there's just great things, but not the diversity. We just have, when you talk about numbers of species, we live in a special area, and this is a special time of year. One of the things I'm still trying to learn that's taken so long is if you like wildlife, there are windows. All right, so the window for just seeing just dozens and dozens of spotted salamanders, that's in the next, you know, like this warm rainy night, Wednesday night, we hope, and then in the future, and then you won't see a spotted salamander the rest of the year. All right, and then until next year. So you have opportunities to see great wildlife in our area, but you kind of have to be in tune with their natural cycles. And if anyone had any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But other than that, I'll turn it over to Jackie for the second part. Yes.
This is more about in the summer, when you're coming in Avon Road, and then on the left side, there's that trail, and then there are these tiny little brown things that are jumping, or are those wood frogs?
I'll bet you spring peepers. So my guess would be so spring peepers, really, really small, looking like that. So they're small, although very young wood frogs, you know, could be. So at the time of the year, amphibians, how long will they spend like a tadpole stage? It really varies. And if you're in a vernal pool, you have to be an adult by the time that dries up. All right. So like different species, if they're saying this is how I'm going to do, like American toads, they can spend tadpoles like days. And then they're like little, you can find little tiny toads that they just really minimize the tadpole phase. So small wood frogs might be confused with the spring peepers. Spring peepers kind of have more of a cross on their back, and wood frogs more of a stripe near their head.
Are you talking like this big, or are you talking teeny tiny? Cause the bullfrogs will hatch all at the same time, and they're teeny tiny. But they'll be everywhere, like you'll be afraid to walk.
Yeah, that's what I've seen.
Yeah.
Tiny ones that were just coming out.
Yeah, that happens at like the, in the parking areas down this way. a lot,
Yeah,
where
that's
they'll
what
have
it's
a
on.
hatch, and yeah, they're just like, it looks like millions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
That's cool.
Okay. Anybody else? Yeah.
The lead phase, is that an actual developmental phase, or is that just like?
No, I think that's just a variant, to the best of my knowledge.
So they wouldn't consider it like a subspecies?
So in species, subspecies, it's not clear cut. And like if we were experts, we would argue like, I propose it's a subspecies, here's my arguments. If it's just in a population, you've got about the same number of lead phases versus here, it would be more of a variant as opposed to more of a subspecies. If, you know, in the Carolinas, we have more of so,
Yeah.
you know, if there's more genetic, in addition to the color difference, there starts to be some other physiological things because the lead ones are reproducing more among themselves and the redback ones are reproducing more among
There's
themselves.
not enough studies to show if it's a subspecies?
I apologize, I don't know.
Yeah.
My impression is it just seems to be just like dogs can have different colors.
Or like black bear, there are lighter colored black bears or
Right.
things like, well, these ones here seem to have the white, right? So things like
But
that's-
not becoming a separate
Yeah,
group,
they're not
separate from other.
subspecies. Okay,
That'd be more like a melon.
Yeah.
yeah, interesting, okay.
And I honestly don't know, but like, if you're nocturnal, I'm not quite sure how, like, I'm not sure why the redback matters if you're
Yeah.
nocturnal and you're underground. So maybe like that might be another factor, that the melanism really wouldn't affect how they interact with each other if they're underground at night.
Be interesting
I'm
if
just
it's like
making it
a
up.
soil type or-
Yeah, there's gotta be something,
Something.
if it's a genetic, you know,
Everybody's
modification
diet,
or
sometimes, like,
mutation.
some animals get their colors from what they eat, some carries maybe diet might be a factor.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, somebody's gonna have to get on it, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
It's
okay.
gonna be.
At home, did you have any questions? Megan and Jason?
They're both muted.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
If the vernal pools freeze, You get a hard freeze out of the eggs.
So that my guess would be things like wood frogs, which as adults can freeze solid, might make it, whereas spotted salamanders, which don't do that, might be harder, put. So when you saw all those eggs, like I think that's one of the things, you have so many kids, because not only do you have so many predators, but vernal pools might dry up early, you might have a cold snap, and so you're betting on here's a temporary environment which will stay temporary for the amount of time I need it, but obviously with nature and weather, that's a very okay. Well, if anyone, because I love, watching all of the amphibians cross the road, and you can see so many different species, but then obviously you can see some which are squished. So obviously, if you're saying, how can I help? Here we have Jackie to explain how you can help. Oh, and before I do, in case I forget, and I think you have some too, we had made, calendars for the Vashakill and then even Orange County Audubon, and there were still some left that hadn't been sold. And so if anyone would like a calendar, what I tell all like my groups, like, any donation which you would like to do, I'll just leave a pile. Feel free to take a calendar.
So this is the moment where if you are definitely not interested in training and you don't want to learn about it, feel free to go about your day. I'm not gonna hold anybody here.
Never allowed to come back.
Yes, exactly. No pressure, but we'll be watching
We'll
you.
put your face.
Yeah.
Do not-
If you need a moment to use the restroom or stretch your legs,
Alright.
please feel free, because, yeah, I'm not gonna be super long, but, Walt, are you gonna stay or do you need to skedaddle?
Yeah.
So could I use your computer instead of switching everything over?
And I was thinking if we kept recording you, just in case like someone a week from now says, I'd love to do it.
Okay.
Did you record the instructions? We can say, yes, we recorded the instructions.
Cool. All right, sounds good. Huh? Oh, you're good. There's also water or coffee in the kitchen if anybody's interested. Sorry, people at home. Can't share with you. Yeah. Yes. Okay, so a few slides I'm going to skip through since Dr. John already went over identification. Thank you for that. It was amazing, as usual. My name is Jackie. I'm the director here. I think everybody knows me. Is anybody's first time here? No. Hi, Sean. Welcome. So I, and thank goodness Tom has just offered to be my backup, will be the people who will be running who will be the people out in the cold and the wet and yes, yeah. So we'll, I'm just gonna go quickly over what we do, how we do it. Everything that I'm gonna go over is on the DEC website. And actually, I'm going to pass around a clipboard while I'm talking. If you want me to contact you for this, leave your name and your phone number and your email. If you want me to email you the links to the DEC stuff, I can do that, but if you search on the DEC website, you'll find it. And those clipboards are what you'll be given when we go out, and it has everything that you're gonna need for the evening. So you went over what are amphibians, correct? We can skip this. I did define herps because we use that term all the time and most people don't know what it means. So it's just a slang for herpetiles or herpetofauna, which is reptiles and amphibians.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think you need the one slide in. why, like, I understand amphibians and reptiles kind of look similar, or I don't know, like lizards, but like, are they really kind of like?
I
should
don't
they
know.
be clumped together?
Do you know why they're clumped together? I feel like, because they're cold-blooded?
So I think like, for example, a lot of, if you ask, who studies fungi, a lot of like botanists are asked to do it, and it's just, they don't have anything in common, but it's just like, hey,
Yeah,
you're like, I expect your job.
okay.
I'd be happy to talk about like, reptiles have far more in common with mammals than they do.
Well, that's kind
you
of
know,
what I'm getting at.
but I
right?
think-
Yeah.
If you study frogs, there may not be so many that a lot of people say, hey, part of your just job description is doing snakes too.
Yeah.
Right,
Alright,
right.
okay, sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine, it's fine. So we can skip. it. So why are we doing this? It's all about behavior. Their behavior is, they do travel to vernal pools. The ones around here are woodland pools to lay their eggs. From what I've read, like, Dr. John said, it's kind of like a birthright thing. It's like genetic code. They go back to where they were born. And they travel anywhere from 100 feet to a quarter mile, which when you're this big, a quarter mile is quite a feat. Our behavior, development of land and forest makes this journey perilous, even in low traffic situations. So the Amphibian Migrations and Road Crossings Project is part of a larger effort by New York State DEC, Hudson River Estuary Program, and Cornell University. They are partnering with local communities to conserve the diversity of plants, animals, and habitats to sustain the health and resiliency of the entire estuary watershed. Now, technically, we are in the Delaware River watershed with just a sliver of the Bashakill in the Hudson Valley watershed. So that puts us in a really, it puts us in a unique niche. So we send our data there anyway. They want it. I don't know how it gets encompassed in the overall Hudson Valley. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just don't make it. So, Delaware watershed, Hudson watershed, we're mostly Delaware, but we're
Right.
bordering on the Hudson. Does that mean we're getting some water from Hudson, but most of it from Delaware, or vice versa? It's going into those?
Geology.
Flowing towards the watershed. So from here until Somerville on this side, from Somerville towards Port Jervis, all of our groundwater will flow over towards the Delaware watershed.
Okay,
But on the other side of Somerville, will go towards Hudson.
it is, okay.
Great.
Which is really interesting.
It is.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And does the ridge play a part in that?
The ranch divide, I think, has something to do with the elevation of it, but I'm not sure if it's with the bedrock and permeability of it,
Okay,
or what is exactly separating it.
got you.
That's interesting spot.
Geology major. Yay. Thank you. I wanted to play this video. This is on the DEC website, but it talks about amphibian migrations and road crossings and why, if I can get it to work. No? So it opened on YouTube on the computer, but not.
If I can do the slideshow still open, if you close the slideshow.
Or doesn't it sometimes do like?
Yeah,
full
it's
screen,
supposed
so
to
maybe you
go.
have to drag it over? Remember that was like last time?
Yeah.
Like, no.
It's supposed to just go there. I've never had a problem before. All right. We'll just skip that and I can cue it later. But basically because of human behavior, climate change, the loss of wetlands, since the 1700s, we've lost it's like 80% of our wetlands. So all this has an effect and, yeah, it's a huge problem and species numbers all across the board, not just herps, but all across the board are significantly lower than they used to be. Oh, now I missed. Oh, there you go. Okay. So these are some of our volunteers from the past. We get every age, which I think is fabulous. Highly encourage families to come out. And the picture on the left, can anybody see where the frog is?
Mhm.
Shh.
On the branch going this. Near the top?
Right there.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's a spring peeper. Yeah.
Yeah, that's like tree from the top there.
So, oh, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, so it's not, this was right along Haven Road. And she just happened to walk over there and see it, which I thought was amazing.
Sounds like work.
Yeah. So
Sorry.
that's okay. You're fired. That's okay. So that's a peeper sitting on a quarter. And that's about, they don't get much bigger than that. So this is just, these are actual pictures taken from, when we've been out on Haven Road. It's a lot of fun. I mean, it's cold, it's wet, it gets miserable, but it's so worth it. We don't need to go over that. Okay, so what do we need to do in order to get our numbers counted? We need to sign up. I'm sending the sheet around. If you're not sure you want to sign up, and then later you're just like, I can't do this. Just let me know and I will take you off the list.
Would I be able to leave my number like in a Facebook message or leave it on here or?
Yeah, I will, well, if you, does Walt have your number?
No.
Okay. I'll give you my email address at the end. Just remind me and you can send it to me.
Gotcha. All right.
Okay. So this is probably not gonna work either, but let's see.
So how did you figure out that this is the right time, temperature wise? It seems awful cold.
It does seem awful cold. And when you pick up a frog and it's 40 degrees out, it's like, oh, like it just kills me because they're freezing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's when they move, they can handle it. And I'm always like, do I hold it in my hand and warm it up a little bit to give it an extra shot? Is that making it worse? Yeah, come on, I'll bring you out next week. Yes, so we watch the weather, the rain, yeah, the temperature and the rain. That's basically it.
And especially the nighttime.
And at night, yeah, yeah. Like we'll go out like just before dark and there'll be nothing. As soon as it gets dark, it's mass exodus, yeah.
Like a rave.
Yeah, it really is. All right, so I got the website to come up, but hold on, let me see if I can close. I don't want to mess up the PowerPoint. I'll just do it at the end because I don't want to mess things up. I don't want you guys to have to sit here. So as you saw from the clipboard that went around, you'll have the identification sheets on there. And before I forget to say that, we'll also be giving you spatulas for the ones who did not make it, because you count them, you identify them, and then you move them off the road. The spatula tends to be too thick, and you can't get it up. So most people use their ID sheets, the laminated ID sheets to scoop under it, so it's dual purpose.
Can I use my hand?
You can use your hand. I'm all about picking the live ones. When it's dead, I get creeped out. You know, yeah. Some people don't come back because it's just too heartbreaking. And then once you know what you're looking at when you're driving down, like especially 209, it's brutal. It's brutal. Yeah. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, especially when, yeah, you're talking lives here. But definitely, you know, look at the sheets, go to the DEC website. They have videos. They also have, you know, just pictures that you can look at. The videos have the calls, which is really important. We don't count the calls, we just count, you know, when we actually see it, but it's good to know. Plus, we're out there. And there's also a spot on the data sheet, I don't know if you know, where it says unknown species. You can always take a picture and send it to the DEC and they'll help you ID it. So there's no pressure.
And another thing that's really helpful, there's, apps you can go on your phone, so if you take. a picture,
yes,
And they can help you identify.
Yeah,
Seek
thank you
is
for
one
that.
that's
Seek,
popular.
yeah,
The thing with Seek I've learned is, it'll kind of tell you the family, it's like, there's another app I use for plants that will tell you percentage of what it thinks it is. With Seek, you kind of have to, and especially if it's night and it's blurry, you
Yeah.
might have some issues.
Right.
Because either it gives you exact identification or it'll tell you the family, it won't tell you.
Right.
like, we think this is 80% sure.
Right.
Bullfrog or whatever.
and
you know?
sometimes it just totally misidentifies.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
That's more with plants, but
Yeah.
it does do it.
So I like Seek, but Seek seems to be like all or nothing.
Yeah.
They're gonna give you the identification or it's gonna say it's a frog, but like, yeah, I know it's a frog. you know?
iNaturalist, I mean, even though Seek's part of
Yeah.
iNaturalist, a lot of people use that. I haven't used it as much, but people seem to like it.
I do.
You do?
I always double check the identification anyway.
Yeah. Do you like it better than Seek?
It takes a little bit longer to get the ID sometimes.
Okay. Yeah.
I find it to be pretty accurate. This is expected in this area, it looks like this.
Okay,
Here's the next three, they could be that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can like link them, so you can have Seek, try to identify it on Seek, and if you don't quite get it, you can auto post it to
Oh.
iNaturalist. And then, double check it on there. go
Yeah.
a little deeper if you want, also, other people will come in and go, oh, that's this. And so you have like a community on there also helping identify stuff.
cool. Very cool.
Hmm.
You'll have to show us how to do that. Oh, I think I skipped something. So in preparation, like if it's Wednesday, you gotta get going. You'd want to be ready because honest to God, sometimes it's like 5 o'clock and I'm still sitting here going, oh, did we go? Did we not go? Because it's all dependent on rain. They need the wet surface to go. And so like have your clothes ready, have your rain gear out, have an extra pair of shoes, in your car, water and a headlamp. Headlamps are key. I have some stuff. I have lanterns. I have the vests. You don't need to do that, but if you have your own flashlight, definitely bring it. Don't count on your phone. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's raining. Yeah.
So you would suggest, like these are supposed to be waterproof boots, so something that's gonna do better and don't wear sneakers that are gonna.
I mean, right. Definitely don't wear sneakers because you're gonna be miserable in minutes.
Wear
Yeah.
something that's gonna keep the water out of.
Right. I mean, I usually only wear my hiking boots, but then I have like at least another
Yeah.
pair of shoes in the car for the drive home because the drive home is miserable if you're soaking wet.
Sounds so much fun. You keep
I know.
saying miserable.
I mean, it's great.
I can't wait.
It's cold and wet. Yeah. I mean,
Get to play with
you
salamanders
do
and
get to
stuff.
play with salamanders. I mean, the first time,
That's good too.
Yes.
yes. Yeah. It's also good if you're trying to write because
Yeah.
that is the most difficult part is we haven't found a really good system. Because wet paper is wet paper, it's, we try to like put the ID sheets on top and then keep it covered and write like that. But if you have a brim and you have a headlamp, you're holding the clipboard, you can write, it's an art for
And if you
sure.
have a partner or a family, I mean, one person's holding the umbrella, like
Right.
nothing has to get wet at all.
Well, that's true. And no, we don't send anybody out alone. Tell you that right now. Yeah.
And you suggest umbrellas or not really, like,
I mean,
they're gonna get clunky with holding it, I guess if you're with a group.
it's
like,
all
your
how
umbrella.
you're how like,
It's real hard to hold the spatula.
Well, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Pencil, the clipboard,
Yeah.
and if you're holding a flashlight.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I
kinda
usually have like my phone behind the clipboard so I can take pictures easily. And I'll have the headlamp on and then sometimes I might have the umbrella, but I'll have it like under my arm.
right, right. That's why a group is good. Yeah. One person is umbrella duty, one person is data taking, one person is spatula. You got to find your own comfort level for there, definitely. So, this is what you need. Most of the stuff is provided by us. Reflective vests, lanterns, flashlights, headlamps, blinking lights, extra batteries. It's dark. So especially like if we're out on Haven Road or South Road. So you want to be seen. Like I said, I have the reflective vests now, so you don't have to worry so much about that. Rain gear, warm layers. Cotton kills, everybody knows that, right? If you got wool, put it on. Data forms, scrap paper, clipboard, pencils, the laminated identification sheets, project fact sheet. So there's a lot of cars will stop and be like, what are you doing? You know, and there's a fact sheet you can tell them, but we also have fact sheets that you can hand them.
Okay.
The spatula and camera, if you're gonna want to take a picture with you and your spotted salamander, I guarantee you.
I feel one in my arm.
So how do we do it? So this is more, if you located a crossing, park in a safe place. This is for the people who are not gonna do it with us and you're gonna do it at your house. Park in a safe space away from amphibian crossing. Don't park on somebody's lawn. They don't like that. Keep an eye underfoot. It gets really like, you get to the point you're like, oh gosh, I don't even want to take a step because and keep your feet on the street unless it's unsafe. So make sure your hands are clean, moist, and free of chemicals before handling live amphibians.
And I apologize, that's one of the reasons I really, really wanna go, is there's one I've never seen, or at least I'm not aware that I've seen. And I wanna get pictures and make the videos.
The
Is that
four-tooth?
The four-tooth?
Yeah,
Yeah. it's a
yeah.
spot.
We did see some last year.
Are they-
Oh,
Yeah,
are
yeah,
they
they're,
like a
yeah,
model? They're kind of rare. in that
they're,
area?
yeah. If it's alive, gently pick it up, move it to the direction it was heading. If you don't want to touch it, you don't have to, you know, we can give you gloves. You can use the identification sheets.
Sometimes I just take the spatula or something and touch its back end and it'll just.
Yeah, you
fall
could
off.
scooch it. Yeah, scooch it across the road for sure. If it's dead, try to identify it and then remove it. You want to remove it because you don't want to count it again. You don't want somebody else to count it. Record the species on the data form. I was thinking about, I'm gonna look into, somebody just gave me this. It's called Write in the Rain. It's
Yeah.
waterproof paper. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking if you want to keep track on this and then fill in the data forms later, that might be a way to go. So I'm gonna look into seeing if I can get some of
They make
these.
different, they make like flip ones.
Oh, they
there's
do?
different- The one I was telling you I used for law enforcement, so it was like you wrote identification of people's names, stuff.
Yeah.
That's just a notebook, but I'm pretty sure they have like the flip one. Like I said, they can be a little pricey, but you might be able to get a bulk for cheaper.
Yeah.
What I'm thinking.
Yeah.
There's something called puffin paper.
Puffin.
Puffin paper, it's waterproof.
Okay, is it like single sheets?
Yeah, letter size.
Oh, okay, I'll look into that too.
It's not cheap, but you could probably buy them.
Right. It might be cheaper to buy that and give everybody an individual sheet of paper.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I wonder if you could copy on it.
What do you mean?
Like print
Oh,
on it.
print on it?
You should be able to.
Try it, yeah.
Yeah, it's worth a shot. Okay. So this is the data form. It looks complicated, but it's pretty straightforward. In the past, we had people enter their own data, but it seems you can, if you want to, by all means. It seems easier for us to collect the data form and then, because we're all in the same area. So then I just compilate or somebody compilates it, adds it all up together and then sends it in that way. It got more complicated because it was just more complicated doing it the other way. But if you want to do it, you are more than welcome to do it. Don't worry, it's going to come in messy and smeared and it's all good. But I'll usually like put the time, the temperature and that kind of stuff in to start it out and then, or I'll give you the information. And then it's just basically cross-hatching, you know, what you see when you see it. They do want to know how many alive, how many dead. So salt bloat. So they're noticing that wood frogs are being affected by the street salt. And so they do want to document that as well. I haven't really seen it, but not to say you won't come across it. So if you see that, definitely document it.
So they just get bloated, but then is that it or they're dying from
I don't
this?
know.
We don't know, okay.
Yeah. Safety's first. Make sure you wear a vest, make sure you have bright lights. Prepare for the cold and rainy weather. Hypothermia sets in really fast. We haven't had any issues, but it's a thing. Bring a buddy. If you don't have somebody to come with and you wanna come, and we will put you in a group. And do not interfere with traffic or flag down drivers. Please do not step in front of a car. And yeah, been wanting to do it myself. You know, we usually have groups spread out all along Haven Road. As soon as a car turned down the road, we're all yelling car. Just step off the road. If we lose a salamander or a frog, that's more important than losing you. Yeah. Yeah, do not flag down a car, please. If you want to bring kids, please bring kids, but make sure they know how to follow directions. You know, I don't want any kid running in the road because they want to save that frog as opposed to getting out of the way of the car. Do they know how to be safe in traffic? Will they be gentle with the amphibians? You know, there's little kids that they want to stomp on everything that's moving or hug it to death. Yeah. Is the road site family friendly? We do, it's really good here. There's plenty of room on the sides of the roads, for everybody to be safe. Will you have one adult for every child? And that's, you know, if you know your kids, you know your family, that's your call. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
So you're doing, if we come here and we're doing it with you, we're doing Haven Road or we're doing this road?
So, we historically have done Haven Road.
Okay.
When the spotted salamanders are the first out. When they are out, I said mass exodus before, literally with the spotted salamanders, and they come off the ridge and it's down. So it's all along South Road.
Okay.
So we've had cars like just pull off the side of the road or drive, find some salamanders, pull off. So if you're comfortable doing that, by all means. If not, you know, we just do Haven Road.
Okay, because it sounds, based on what we're learning, it sounds like there's gonna be a lot of migration
Yeah.
here. compared to
Honestly,
the road that's cutting between.
Even if there's somebody that wants to stand in our driveway,
Okay.
you know, it's definitely,
Right, I'm gonna try to bring some people, I don't know if I can convince them. but I'm
That's
gonna work on them.
one time. Don't tell them how cold it is.
And even one thing that happened with me last year is like, let's say you're focused on Haven Road, and then you're just like, but now I'm gonna go home. And then now, like, I'm gonna drive here, so like, so just keep on taking data and see something up across the road. So even if Haven Road was your main thing, just on your way home, you might say, oh.
Yeah.
South Road.
Yeah, just if you do that, mark where you are, the location and the direction that
Okay.
the little guy's going, because it is important. And you'll find like now, most of them are moving towards the Bashkill on the way back, or towards the end of the spring, they're moving the other way. Yeah. I'm sorry, opposite.
So if you're coming here to kind of do it with us, what time are you estimatedly starting? What time are you estimatedly?
So I'll give you a time because it's sundown.
Okay.
So I'll it's usually like 7:30.
Okay. And
around
then
there.
You stay out for as long as.
You stay out for as long as you're comfortable with. If you're freezing in an hour, half hour, then you go home. You know, you'll know. You'll be like, all right, I had enough. And or Tom will be there till the last person is in. I always hang out in the Haven Road parking lot because it's our base, and that way I know who's come and gone, and I don't want to miss anybody. Yeah.
Are we gonna set up like a little tent or something in the parking lot? Just
We
like
never have, but it's not a bad idea.
Do you guys have one of those big?
We do.
Cause I was thinking, I think I might have one, but.
No, we have
it's not
one.
a bad idea, right? To have
It's
just
not.
a little bit of a, and then even if it's just like, hey, I gotta get out of the rain for a minute.
Right.
Have like I don't know, just thought about it.
That's a thought. Yeah. I usually just work out of my trunk and then people get in their
That's
cars,
true, yeah.
but that's not a bad idea.
Well, if we want to, I can, like I said, I can come anytime and I'll
Okay.
set it up or whatever.
All right, cool.
I'll take off work all day.
Sundown is 5:53.
Okay.
The valley gets darker because the mountains are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this Wednesday Okay, all right, that's a good time. I don't have to sit here and wait for it until daylight savings is happening soon, right? So maybe we'll get one day where it's a regular time. All right, any other questions? It's cool to come a few different times because like I said, like first the spotteds and the peepers and then the pickerel frogs and the wood frogs and then at the tail end it's the gray frogs. So like you get to see everything. So it's fun. But it also depends on sometimes it's raining in the middle of the night and that's when they move, so you don't see anything. But it's definitely fun. It's definitely worth the effort for sure. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does how do I get to the people? Okay. All right, I'll type my email in the chat.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
We started out late, so I think we're seeing a lot of migration in the February, and we have migration till about this time.
Okay, there you go.
So,
Are
Thank
you in the area?
Yes,
Okay, great.
I'm up in Sparrow Bush.
On a big stopping point?
I'm sorry?
Yeah,
Sparrow Bush.
it's like.
Oh, okay,
it's
great.
Like a certain.
So yeah, send me your information. Make sure it's a cell phone number so I can text you. Because emailing is it's just easier to text everybody and stay connected that way.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, thank you so much. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All
Have a
right,
good day.
take care.
I'm also going to send you an email. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye bye.
Well, some.
Not for the raccoons and the, yeah.